These 10 people survived things that should have been impossible. One survived 438 days lost at sea. Another fell over 30,000 feet without a parachute. One survived not one, but 2 atomic bombs. These are the greatest survival stories ever recorded. Number 10, Aron Ralston. In 2003, experienced climber Aron Ralston was exploring Utah's Blue John Canyon completely alone. But while squeezing through a narrow slot canyon, an 800-pound boulder suddenly broke loose, crushing his right arm against the canyon wall. For nearly 6 days, Aron was trapped with almost no food and only a small amount of water. After realizing no one was coming to save him, he made an unimaginable decision. Using a dull multi-tool, he amputated his own arm, climbed out of the canyon, and hiked several miles before finally finding help. Aron survived one of the most unbelievable survival ordeals ever recorded. Number 9, Juliane Koepcke. In 1971, 17-year-old Juliane Koepcke was flying over the Amazon rainforest when lightning struck her plane. The aircraft broke apart nearly 10,000 feet above the jungle. Amazingly, Juliane was still strapped to her seat as she fell through the sky. She survived the fall with a broken collarbone, cuts, and severe bruises, but she was completely alone in one of the world's most dangerous rainforests. For 11 days, she followed a small stream, knowing it would eventually lead to people. Along the way, she endured hunger, infected wounds, swarms of insects, and the constant threat of deadly animals. Eventually, she found a small logging camp where workers rescued her and rushed her to safety. Juliane became the only known survivor of the crash, making her story one of the most extraordinary survival stories ever recorded. Number 8, Ernest Shackleton. In 1915, explorer Ernest Shackleton and his crew became trapped when their ship, Endurance, was crushed by Antarctic ice. The ship slowly sank, leaving 28 men stranded on drifting sea ice in one of the coldest places on Earth. For months, they survived by living on floating ice, hunting seals and penguins, and enduring brutal blizzards. When the ice finally broke apart beneath them, they escaped in small lifeboats across the freezing Southern Ocean. Shackleton then sailed more than 800 miles through some of the world's roughest seas in a tiny open boat to find help. After crossing mountains and glaciers on foot, he finally reached a whaling station and organized a rescue mission. Against all odds, every single member of the expedition survived, making it one of the greatest leadership and survival stories in history. Number 7, Ada Blackjack. In 1921, Ada Blackjack joined an Arctic expedition as a cook, traveling to one of the most remote islands on Earth. When supplies ran low, the other explorers left across the frozen sea to search for help. They never returned, leaving Ada alone with a sick teammate in the unforgiving Arctic. After he died, Ada was completely alone, surviving for months by setting traps, hunting foxes, and learning to shoot a rifle. She endured freezing temperatures, polar bears, and total isolation while waiting for someone to find her. After nearly 2 years on the island, a rescue ship finally arrived, making Ada Blackjack one of history's most remarkable survival stories. Number 6, José Salvador Alvarenga. In 2012, fisherman José Salvador Alvarenga left the coast of Mexico with a young fishing partner for what was supposed to be a routine one-day trip. But a powerful storm destroyed their engine, GPS, and radio, leaving their small boat drifting helplessly into the vast Pacific Ocean. Search teams looked for them for days, but eventually the search was called off, and the 2 men were believed to be lost at sea. To survive, José caught fish with his bare hands, hunted seabirds and sea turtles, and collected rainwater whenever storms passed overhead. His young fishing partner eventually became too weak to survive and died at sea, leaving José completely alone on the endless ocean. For more than 14 months, José battled hunger, storms, blazing heat, loneliness, and the constant uncertainty of whether he would ever see land again. Then, after drifting for an incredible 438 days, his boat finally washed ashore on a remote island in the Marshall Islands, over 6,000 miles from where his journey began. Against all odds, José had survived one of the longest solo survival ordeals at sea ever recorded, making his story one of the greatest survival stories in history. Number 5, Vesna Vulović. In 1972, 22-year-old flight attendant Vesna Vulović boarded a passenger airliner for what was supposed to be a routine flight across Europe. As the plane cruised more than 33,000 feet above the ground, passengers had no idea disaster was only moments away. Without warning, a powerful bomb exploded inside the aircraft, ripping it apart high above Czechoslovakia. The plane disintegrated in midair, sending wreckage, passengers, and crew falling thousands of feet toward the ground. Somehow, Vesna remained trapped inside a section of the aircraft as it plunged from the sky. The wreckage slammed into a snow-covered mountainside where a local villager rushed to the crash site. Against all odds, Vesna was still alive even though everyone else on board had perished. She suffered a fractured skull, crushed vertebrae, broken legs, broken ribs, and dozens of other devastating injuries. Doctors believed she would never walk again, but after months of surgeries and rehabilitation, she slowly regained the ability to stand and walk. Vesna went on to earn a Guinness World Record for surviving the highest fall without a parachute, making her story one of the greatest survival stories ever. Number 4. Tsutomu Yamaguchi. In August 1945, 29-year-old engineer Tsutomu Yamaguchi was finishing a business trip in Hiroshima when history was about to change forever. Without warning, the atomic bomb exploded over the city, unleashing a blinding flash, a massive shockwave, and unimaginable destruction. Yamaguchi suffered severe burns, ruptured eardrums, and other injuries, but somehow survived the blast that killed tens of thousands of people. The very next day, despite his injuries, he traveled back to his hometown of Nagasaki to reunite with his family. On the morning of August 9th, while explaining what had happened in Hiroshima to his co-workers, another blinding flash filled the sky. A second atomic bomb had exploded over Nagasaki, making Tsutomu one of the very few people known to survive both nuclear attacks. Against impossible odds, he and his family survived the second bombing and went on to rebuild their lives after the war. Decades later, the Japanese government officially recognized Tsutomu Yamaguchi as a survivor of both the Hiroshima and Nagasaki atomic bombings, making his story one of the most extraordinary survival stories ever recorded. Number 3. Poon Lim. In 1942, during World War II, 24-year-old Chinese sailor Poon Lim was serving aboard a British merchant ship crossing the Atlantic Ocean. Without warning, the ship was struck by a German U-boat torpedo and sank beneath the waves in just minutes. Most of the crew perished, but Poon managed to escape onto a small wooden life raft with only a few basic supplies. When his food and fresh water ran out, he refused to give up. He caught fish with handmade hooks, trapped seabirds, and collected rainwater to stay alive. He even learned to attract sharks, catching smaller ones for food. While constantly battling the scorching sun, violent storms, and complete isolation in the open Atlantic. For an incredible 133 days, Poon drifted thousands of miles across the ocean, watching ships pass without seeing him and wondering if anyone would ever find him. Finally, near the coast of Brazil, local fishermen spotted his tiny raft and pulled him to safety. Against nearly impossible odds, Poon Lim survived 133 days alone at sea, setting one of the greatest open ocean survival records in history and inspiring survival training for sailors around the world. Number 2. Hugh Glass. In 1823, American frontiersman Hugh Glass was guiding a fur trading expedition deep into the unforgiving wilderness of what is now South Dakota. Without warning, he stumbled across a mother grizzly bear protecting her cubs. The massive animal charged, knocking Glass to the ground. The bear savagely mauled him, tearing open his back, breaking his leg, and leaving him covered in deep wounds before finally wandering away. His fellow explorers believed there was no chance he would survive. They buried him beneath a blanket, took his rifle and supplies, and abandoned him in the wilderness to die. But Hugh Glass refused to give up. Barely able to move, he dragged himself across the ground using only his arms, crawling mile after mile through forests, rivers, and open plains. He survived by eating wild berries, roots, and whatever small animals he could find, all while battling hunger, infection, freezing nights, and the constant threat of wolves and other predators. For weeks, Glass crawled and limped an estimated 200 miles before finally reaching a nearby settlement, where people rushed to help him recover. Against nearly impossible odds, Hugh Glass survived one of history's most brutal animal attacks, making his incredible journey one of the greatest survival stories ever recorded. Number 1. Nando Parrado. In 1972, a plane carrying a rugby team crashed high in the Andes Mountains after striking a snow-covered peak. The survivors were trapped over 12,000 feet above sea level with almost no food, freezing temperatures, and no hope of rescue. After hearing that the official search had been called off, they realized they would have to save themselves. 72 days after the crash, Nando Parrado and Roberto Canessa set out on foot, climbing some of the world's highest and most dangerous mountains. After trekking for 10 days across snow-covered peaks and glaciers, they finally found a Chilean cattle herder and led rescuers back to the crash site. Their incredible journey saved the lives of the remaining survivors, making it one of the greatest survival stories in history. Which survival story amazed you the most? Let me know down in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.